Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's
Hello.
proud of me for actually coming on at a reasonable time for all of us in the UK. um,
Yes, thank you for that.
how are you, Kaz?
I'm not bad yourself, apart from being sweltering.
Apart from melting, I'm literally melting. I've never known heat like this.
No, well, we've never had heat like this. And our houses are built to retain heat, so we're all sweltering here. But at least we're not on fire because some of the United Kingdom is tonight, so thank goodness for that.
No way, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's big fires in Kent and some other areas of the country. Big fires where they just can't get them under control because the grass is too dry. So there's nothing to stop them.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, we're a bit of a mess right now because we can't cope. But hopefully learning will be done and things will be better.
This is the thing about us over here in Great Britannia. As soon as we get any kind of weather that's in any way outside of the normal drab kind of conditions, we go to pieces, don't we? We can't cope.
Yeah, if it's not like a drizzle or a
Yeah,
rain, we don't really know what to do we?
we don't have the infrastructure. We can handle
No.
dourness and a little bit of rain, but that's it.
Yeah, we can handle snow. North of England, Scotland can handle snow, I think, better than southern England, because they're used to the warmer weather. It's different, like wherever you are in the country. But for this heat, none of us are prepared for this. None of us.
No. And it's even like from what I'm seeing, it's even warmer where you guys are than up here, up in Scotland. Wow. Thank God
Yeah,
it's going to cool down tomorrow, apparently, right?
it is. It's cooled down tonight. It's going to cool down tomorrow, so we should be able to get some sleep.
Yeah.
But any rattiness will be put to pay, which will be lovely. Less grumpy Brits. I mean, a lot of Brits are grumpy anyway, but less
Yeah.
so. Hello to everybody in the chat. I can't
Just
comment
out,
back, but it's just saying hello.
just out of interest, everyone that's in here, um, let's do a straw poll out of curiosity. If you're in the UK or Ireland, type a one. If you're in the USA, type a two. Anyone down in Australia or New Zealand, type a three. Hey Nancy, Evie, Coconuts, Jamie, Daisy Doolittle, how are you? Spaghetti Nuna. Hey Jackie, Zelda, and Hell to the No.
Zelda's in here. I love Zelda.
Zelda's
And there's, of course, Evie, my fave. I don't even hide
uh,
it.
friends with Evie.
I love Evie.
Oh, we got Canada as well, the cat.
Canada, there you go. Yeah, there'll be Canada and there will be some people. I think there's people from sort of European countries. There's a couple of people from Crete,
Yeah.
Malta, places like that.
Anywhere outside of the locations I mentioned, put a four. We've got kind of half and half. See, even at this time, we've still got more Americans, Kaz.
hmm It's tea time, what I call tea time in America, about 5 o'clock, isn't it? About five-ish,
Yeah,
four,
they'll
five
be
o'clock.
finishing up. Anyone that works 9 to 5 will be just finishing up.
Mr. Shannonite, sorry I'm late. I'm organising Kazbat's underwear drawer again. I do wish you wouldn't put her egg whisk in there. I'll put it back in the kitchen later.
There you go. Your own,
Okay.
your own personal.
My own personal underwear sorter. I was expecting him to say that he'd got lost in there because needless to say, I mean, I was into psychic connections and things like that, and I wanted to be a medium, but my underwear just didn't agree. Had to be a large.
Okay, so do you? I know this is off the kind of topic that we're going to cover, but are you into any sort of supernatural sort of stuff, like you know?
Well, I'm pagan and I'm a witch, so I believe in
Wow.
manifesting things, and I believe in um, basically, it sounds complicated, but I celebrate the changing of the seasons and collect things around the changing of the seasons, and have lots of rocks and jars with plants in my house. That's
Nice.
effectively what it comes down to. Um, but you can't rule out the supernatural because we can't disprove it. It's like having faith in something you can't prove or disprove it. So I'm never willing to rule
Hmm,
anything out.
I
That
like
makes
that.
sense.
I like that. I was having a discussion with a good friend about that sort of stuff the other night. It's interesting to see how everyone perceives it all, because I would like I wouldn't say I'm religious, right? But
Hmm.
I'm spiritual, you
Hmm.
know. I'm kind of, I guess the term would be agnostic, you know. Um,
Yes.
s- I definitely think there's something going on that we don't know everything about, right? Some mysterious thing where, that we may be somehow transformed in some kind of way once this crazy life is all over with, you know? I just don't believe it's darkness again.
Well, we are made of energy, and even if you take it from a scientific perspective, energy doesn't vanish, it just changes form.
We
So
spoke
if
about
you're,
that very thing.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
so even if you are, we eat because we need energy, we drink because we need energy, we are made of energy. So obviously, when then sadly people pass away, that energy has to go somewhere,
Yeah.
even if it goes out into the universe to be 100 different things, it's
Yeah.
still there.
Still there. It just
Hmm.
it's kind of transformed, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's like I always use the analogy of, you look at a tree and in the autumn the leaves die and fall, right? But they're transformed in the soil when they fall there, and it's just it nourishes the soil and then other things grow from that and this whole cycle continues, right? It's just a bunch
Yeah.
of atoms in different forms.
That's it. If you even going like obviously I believe in science. We
Yeah.
kind of have to because it's well tested. The scientific method is there for a reason, and we're forever learning things. We can't ever know anything. You could live forever and not know everything, and I think that's one of the fun parts of being alive. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, if we just dissipate, so we would have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So you're always alive. That energy is always there, just in a different form. You're doing something. You're adding to something. You're being something.
Absolutely. Let me just show you something here on that.
Mhm.
I didn't expect to talk about this, but that's what I love
It just
about
it just fell in my
freeform.
lap by accident. Yeah.
There's nothing better than a freeform conversation, Kaz.
No, no.
So you're into science. You've heard of dark matter, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So God
But
only
t-
knows.
but tell me all about it.
Right. Okay. So so God only knows how scientists are able to calculate all this, but they come with good authority that they know this for a fact. That
Hmm.
all the matter that exists in the universe, right? There's 85% of that matter is actually
Hmm.
invisible to us, and it doesn't
Right.
react to
Hmm.
the matter, the physical matter that we can see,
Yep.
but it has an effect in terms of gravity, and it
Okay.
explains how the universe is arranged the way it is. So just think
Okay.
about that. 85% of all the physical matter in the universe is invisible to us, right? That's
Wow.
pretty
Hmm.
mysterious, right?
It is. It is. That's a lot.
It's a
So what is
lot.
it that we're not seeing? What's
Exactly,
going
right?
on in that dark matter?
Who knows? It could be all sorts of different realities that we're not at that stage yet, you know?
No, I mean, we may never know, but in time we might. We'll learn more every time, all the time.
Exactly.
So that's probably why, there'll be lots of things that are sort of passed off as paranormal that are paranormal because they're not normal to us. So that's anything like that is paranormal that
Yeah,
will be
that's how we
explained.
perceive it, right? We
Hmm.
perceive it in that way.
That's right. And our bodies are good at perceiving things. They bounce light off objects into our retina and we go, oh, I recognize that. So much so that we get pareidolia, which is where we see faces and things in other patterns. It's
Yeah,
not,
and we see shadows on body cam footage or surveillance
don't
footage,
even,
right? Of
don't
cases.
even. I did a whole video about pareidolia. Like it started off about pareidolia. I'm like, this could be anything. Like,
Yeah.
you can zoom in on any part of this and you can make a face there and you can make a dog there and you can make a cat there.
I think I watched that video actually on your
Like
channel.
you probably,
Yeah.
I
It
forget
was
what it was called.
it was obviously the Chris Watts case, right? The famous surveillance footage.
Yeah, I felt the need to debunk a bit of that nonsense because that was getting way out of hand. It really was. I also revisited the footage that they were claiming was two people walking out of the drive, and it wasn't. It was him twice on a loop.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's pretty obvious.
myself and DBT did a bit of a deep dive into the whole thing about the lights, the little glimmers of lights going on and off, and whether that was someone sitting in the car, It's just
Right, that one.
you just can't come to any conclusive,
But the thing is, when people speculate like that, my only issue is I have no issue with speculation. I have no issue with that as long as you say we're not sure about that or that's my opinion. Don't state it as fact, because then that gets up my nose.
yeah.
Yeah. If you've got the facts and you work from the facts and you say that I think this or I could see that, but what I was hearing was somebody consistently repeating that he bends down, he picks it up, he bends down, he picks it up. It's a subtle form of brainwashing. You tell something to somebody enough times, they're gonna see it in their own mind.
I think I know who you're speaking about. Probably most people
Yes.
do, right?
I don't mention them much because I'm rude to
Yeah.
give them any attention. If I'm honest, he gets enough.
Yeah. What annoyed me with that whole thing is that I was perceiving that it was a conscious effort just to start recycling nonsense just
Yes, for
for
views.
views. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. As
And
long
there's a
as
lot of that.
God, yeah.
He's not the only one.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I guess they're free to do it, right? It's up to
Mhm.
people to make the choice whether they want to watch or not. I mean, I don't have any issue with someone doing that. But
No, if
if
people want to watch that, that's fine. It's the same as if they want to donate their money. I don't have an issue with that at all. It's their money to donate. I don't mind if they're donating just for the sake of that person is entertaining them, then donate away. It's when people say
yeah,
I need money for this and then don't buy it. That's a bit rough.
right,
But
yeah,
if they're just donating money because they like the person and they're
yeah,
filling that evening, it's no different from paying, say, a TV subscription.
yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, there was a bit of that during the Watts case, a lot of conspiracies, and I didn't agree with NK getting accused of murder. I questioned it for about half a second when a phone pinged. Um,
Mm.
but after that, I thought, well, no, actually, there's more evidence that she didn't. She wasn't.
There's
Um,
overwhelming evidence that
yeah.
she wasn't involved,
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and I
and
think she's a silly girl, and I think she's dishonest, and I think she fibbed about some of the aspects of their relationship and what she knew and what she didn't.
yeah,
But she's quite young,
yeah.
and I think who's ready for this situation?
No one can
Who's ready
prepare themselves for that, right?
for the
No
for the
one.
man you're having an affair with to murder his wife and children?
Do you know? Do you know what I suspected was going on there? Maybe even
Mm.
if subconsciously, is a lot of people that got quite deep into the case, and for obvious reasons, they really got close emotionally to Shanann and obviously the kids, right? So they were
Mm-hmm.
very, very defensive about
Yep.
about them. So
Mm-hmm.
on the face of it, to a lot of people, none of this would ever have happened if Chris didn't have this crazy affair. And a lot of people have got memories of the hurt that they've felt in their life, because some girl
Mm-hmm.
comes along and, lures their man away or something
Yes,
similar
all
to
those
that.
women who've been cheated on,
Yes.
and all
So,
those men who've been cheated on, that feeling of pain
yeah,
and the agony, and especially how he treated her in those last few weeks. He
yeah.
treated her terribly. It was a proper narcissistic discard of her. Horrendous.
It's crazy to think how he was capable of still saying certain things to Shanann, even if it was just through text messages, all the way leading up until
Mm-hmm.
that night, telling her, you know, you know, he was obviously trying, it seemed to
Mm-hmm.
me, to just keep her hoping, you know,
Yes. He kept her hanging on just in case things didn't work out, I think.
you think?
I think so.
So do you think there was no premeditation? Do you think it was impulsive?
Nope, I think it was premeditated. I think it was. I think he had that plan because I think his plan was that he was going to drive her car off and just leave it and say that she'd left him.
Right.
Um, I think there was something that went on with the kids beforehand. I don't believe he killed the kids. I know this is controversial. Don't come for me. You have people have their opinion, I have mine.
Absolutely.
But I think there's a reason that there was some involvement with the fridge that afternoon in the house and the temperature of the fridge, and the fact that he said to NK the night before that the children's sheets stank, and then he says that he killed them up by the oil tanks. And it just doesn't ring true to me. There's something that sucks there. And given he's lied 3 times now about what actually happened that night, I don't think we'll ever get the truth out of him. I think he just wants attention.
That's what I was saying on a previous panel on this, is that we're in this horrible situation. Obviously, there was no trial, so there's no closure. But also, like you say, he's come up with 3 or 4 different stories. So there's nothing he can ever say now that's going to
Nope.
give closure to this, because who's
He's the
going to
boy who
believe
cried
him?
wolf.
Exactly.
He's the boy who cried wolf. Lie to me once, I might believe you again. Lie to me twice, and you've had it, you know. I don't understand why anybody would believe him. And I know we can theorize about what he says, and some things that he said did link up, but the story that he told the second time when they went to see him in the prison just seemed to me like sensationalism on his part, because he wanted that bit more attention. And it would suggest to me also, because he's always trying to downplay his role, like, don't remember me for that one thing. Chris, man, what do you expect, you muppet? You know, you don't remember me for what that terrible, horrible, heinous thing that you did. You don't want to be just remembered for that. But it would suggest to me that what he actually did was worse.
You think?
Yeah, because he doesn't tell the truth, and he minimizes his acts. And that was a pretty horrible story that he told. I just don't think he realized how horrible it was.
Yeah, something about that story just doesn't seem to sit right, that he drove them there and did it at the site. I just...
No, but well, little kids are little kids. And they weren't exactly shrinking violets, bless their hearts. It was Sissy's birthday the other day as well. Bless their hearts. They were like great, like loving, bouncy children, you know, who played.
Love energy,
and
yeah.
Yes. And I don't know about you, or if you've had contact with kids, but if you wake kids up in the middle of the night and you take them out to the car, they're going to be mucking about and shouting and yelling. And like, especially if mum's in that condition. What's happening there? What's happening in the crying and the histrionics? And I can't see and be able to take those children out and keep that quiet.
Yeah, just think how long he had the garage door open, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
No, Coconut, she wasn't a saint. I think the thing with Shanann was, and the thing that triggered a lot of people with Shanann, was the Facebook stuff. It's MLM. And I don't think that was really the real true Shanann. You know, the smiling, da, 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 hello, I've just got my Thrive and I'm happy, blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't really think that was necessarily the true her, but I can see why that would grate on people. And I think people thought that it was. So I understand that some people maybe don't like her, but I liked her just fine. You know, I didn't find certainly.
She was definitely. She was definitely portraying
like a lady boss.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things, right? Like, number one, I think any woman would have come across as controlling with Chris.
With him, yes.
Right? That's definitely true. The other thing is that she did definitely seem to be overly too sucked up in the whole, like, not just with the MLM thing, right, with all the videos that she was putting out there, but even when she was putting out videos for her family and things, you know, it was perhaps a little too much of a performance, you know, rather than being completely in the moment and being aware of the kids' needs exactly in the moment. Now that
I mean, a lot of people are guilty of that on social media. I think that's because you look down your timeline sometimes. Well, if you've got the wrong people on your Facebook, which we've all been inclined to do in the past, not anymore, but I have been, and it's all how wonderful their life is, and how great things seem, and then 2 seconds later they're divorced, and you think, well, how did that happen? Everything was going so great, you know. It's not a true reflection of life at all, and you know, their own personal struggles. For me, the real Shanann is the girl who was sat, and it was a video that she made, but she talked about how she'd met Chris and how he was the best thing that ever happened to her. And she made that, and it's in the documentary. And for me, that's who she is. That's who I think of when and the letter that she wrote to Chris to try and win him back.
Oh, God,
because she felt like that was heartbreaking, because she was trying to get him back because she knew she was losing him.
Did
And
you only see that letter? Did you only ever show that to a friend? Did you get round to actually giving it to Chris? I'm trying to remember.
let me think.
Oh, you
It's been a
did.
long time since I looked at that discovery. Bu- 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 bum. I think she did give him it because I think he threw it in the bin.
Oh my god.
Because he definitely threw the book in the bin. She bought him a book. I forget the title of it, but it was about, saving the marriage.
Yeah.
But he threw that. That was found in the bin when the police were in the house.
Mm.
So, but yeah, I just found it was just that was heartbreaking to me. That was where I
Mm.
related to Shanann. It wasn't the person on Facebook selling Thrive.
Yeah.
It was the girl who met this man who she
Mm.
thought was absolutely saved her and was wonderful. And
Yeah.
then the girl who was desperately sad that she was losing him, and all the texts that she sent to her friends saying he won't talk to us, he won't touch us.
Mm.
Oh, how
I know.
hurtful.
I know.
Yeah, it's really sad. And so that's what I think of. And I think the
Yeah.
rest just commercialism and it's normal social media.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I don't think Shanann, like for all that some people would criticize her, right? And I have, right? But
Hmm.
for all that, at the same time, she was no different to an absolutely huge cross section of the society we live in, right?
Hmm.
It's culture wide in the West, with the way that social media has developed and
Yeah,
this kind of mini celebrity sort of need that almost everyone can sort of be a little mini celebrity in some way, right? In
yeah.
our in some of our thoughts,
You can have your
through
own little world. You can define
can.
how people perceive you. And if you can choose to be authentic or you can choose to be inauthentic. Um, and I think if you are selling a product and you
Hmm.
are the conduit for selling that product, everything must seem perfect.
Hmm.
Because if it's not, then people will start to question not only you, but the product by proxy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if your social media is associated with something like professional like that, then yeah,
Hmm.
obviously that's going to be more in someone's mind, right?
Yeah,
But like even outside of that, when it's just in terms of how people use their social media in general, people can just lose their attachment to reality in some sense, or
yeah.
they end up getting from social media things that they might be missing in the real world.
Validation from external sources when they should be looking within themselves for it first. If you don't love yourself, you're no use to anybody else, really. You can kid
Mm,
yourself you are. You're certainly no use to yourself. And that's where we had a little bit of a discussion about that before we went live.
yeah.
And I was talking about like validation, and a lot of people seek validation through social media. And yes, it's nice to get compliments. However, you can't base your whole life on that. You can't have all your friends on the internet. It just,
I yeah.
I mean, you can, but to me, it just seems a little.
It's a prescription for disaster. You can do it, but it's disasters coming down the line. There's a train coming your
Mhm.
way, right? And like
Mm,
like everyone that's on, like we're obviously segueing into the kind of topic here, right?
yes.
Surviving YouTube.
Hmm.
Like you and I have both been on here for quite some time, right?
Yeah.
We've both had our ups and downs, I think, right?
Long enough. Yes, we
Long
have.
enough. So yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to have a free-form discussion about it in general, this whole crazy thing called YouTube, right? And it probably applies to a whole bunch of platforms, social media in general, and how we all
Yes.
use it, and like obviously not everyone is blind to the dangers of it. Like some people have to go through a lot of crap before they get it into perspective. Like I would say I've
Yes.
done that a bit, Kaz,
Me too. Me too.
Um,
Without a shadow of a doubt.
yeah,
I had to get stung pretty bad before I realised what the crack was.
yeah, yeah. We might talk about that if you want to, right?
Hmm.
Um,
But it's like we were talking about like bits of advice, and you were saying you were having a conversation with somebody else about it, and the whole thing about don't trust people with confidential information.
yes,
Not everybody is your friend. Yeah.
yeah, I was literally just having this conversation with someone earlier, and Like, what is, like, if there's one thing that you could advise anyone else who's coming to YouTube fresh, is be incredibly careful, even with people that you think may be your friends, right? Off
Yes,
of
wait,
YouTube.
give it time. I
Give
mean,
it
I've been
time.
very lucky. I've made some great friends who I can trust with anything. One of them is in the chat right now, but
Yeah.
those are few and far between.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
There's quite a few as well, other people that I trust with anything that I've met, but it's got to be a group of about 5 or 6, maybe 7 at a push.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's out of the hundreds and hundreds of people that I've sort of
Yeah.
had conversations with.
Yeah. Because there's
And it's
all.
only because, go on, sorry.
Sorry. Well, I
I
was just
was
going
just
to.
going to, go on.
On you go. We're both so
No,
polite over here, aren't we,
but
in the UK?
by all means, go ahead, Rabid, because I want to hear what you had to say. Go.
Yeah, because there's something that I kind of realized in retrospect, right, after being burned by certain people, is that like people have there's certain motivations that go on in YouTube that just don't quite exist in the outside of YouTube in the real world.
Yes.
So people can present themselves as all sorts of characters, but there's there's so many motivations that are possibly lying under the surface, you know? One of the main things might be something like attention or, just a need for validation, like you say, or
I think there is a toxic cycle that you get into on YouTube if you're not careful. If you're not prioritizing your own health
Hmm.
and you're not prioritizing your well-being, you can fall into a cycle of what gets me the most views. Let's
Hmm.
do that. Let's do that ad infinitum. Let's have all people be disposable who outlive their usefulness, because the product on YouTube is you. The human being on the screen is the product. You
Mhm.
are selling yourself. This is a very tame form of sex work in a fashion.
Hmm.
You are selling yourself. You are the
Yeah.
product. So what you choose to present to the world, my advice really would be authentic, because what happens is that people present themselves in an inauthentic way because they want to impress and they
Mhm.
want people to like them more so they get more views. They want to cover subjects that get them more views, and they will do that, as we previously discussed with that other create ad infinitum, ad nauseum.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think what happens is you lose yourself. You become that public image. And because you're being inauthentic, sooner or later, whether it be off YouTube or on YouTube, off YouTube with in communications with people who are involved with your YouTube, you will display who you really are.
Mhm.
And therefore the mask is off. And bit by bit that information will creep out. And I think starting out from an inauthentic position is a very unwise thing to do. Be authentic. If people like you, they'll like you. Fantastic. If they don't, maybe YouTube's not for you. Do
Mhm.
something else rather than pretending to be somebody you're not.
I love that. I love that.
Well, I don't see how there's any other better way to do it, because not everybody's going to like you. God, you get some hateful comments on the internet, but they are in the minority.
Mm.
So, and I'm just me. I don't give a toss. I'm a little fat Geordie. I don't care. And I'm a lefty. And, I will speak out on controversial things. And if people agree with me, fine. If they don't, they don't. That's whatever. But I'm
Mm.
not scared to do that because it's me.
Mhm.
I'm not scared to not talk about those things. I'm not scared to talk about those things because it'll get me less views or because people won't like me.
Mhm.
If I am myself, then I will attract the right people and they will come to me and be with me.
Mm. Yeah. And leaving this aside for a minute, right? The whole kind of financial aspect of it, right? Because obviously a lot of
Mm-hmm,
creators they want to be able to depend on a certain kind of income, right? Just
mm-hmm.
like leaving that aside for a second, right? The
Yep.
priority through it all should be the individual themselves, right? And their own health, mental
Mm-hmm.
health, and
Yes.
their not just that, but their enjoyment or pleasure
Mm-hmm.
from the experience, right? And there's so many creators out there that we can all see are like they're like addicted gamblers chasing their tail to maintain
Hmm.
something, whether it's in terms of numbers or whether it is a financial thing.
I think that's
Um,
an insecurity as well, because if you have a following and they're like you for you, right? So I'm going
mhm,
to use PewDiePie as an example, right? I'm not his biggest fan, but like I did watch some of his content and he has genuinely made me laugh on occasion, but I can't say I agree with everything he says because I really don't.
yeah.
But Felix Shelberg was at one time YouTube's, until he was knocked out by T Series, was the biggest like solo YouTuber on the platform. And he used to get burnout, and he makes a 10-minute video every day, usually without fail. He's had very little in the way of breaks. But even he had to acknowledge, and he was only very young, that he would suffer from burnout and he would get really depressed and he would try things that weren't working and people were always criticizing him. And a lot of the time he took that to heart and the negative comments to heart. It's a
Mm.
really harsh environment to be in. And what a lot of those YouTubers do now is they know that if they take a break, yeah, the algorithm doesn't like it, but
Mhm.
they can pick up where they left off when they return because those people will still be there for them. And you need to
Yeah.
have faith in what you've built in order to
Mm.
take that break. And you just go, right, I'm taking a break. Even I do it with my tiny channel. I'm like, right,
Yeah.
I'm off for a week. I've had enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, right, if you're not taking a break, right, if you're chasing your tail, so to speak, right, then you might think that you're not missing a beat and you're not going to drop down the algorithm or what, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you have to look at the long game. If you are taking breaks, healthy breaks, then you're going to come back with so much more energy and a lot more to say, right? Because
Yes.
you're not. I mean, anyone that's like no one could work 7 days a week, you
No.
know, endlessly. You know,
If
you
it was a
you
normal job, it would be the worst job in the world. It honestly worked well. I'm sure there's worse ones. I'm embellishing slightly. Apologies to anybody with a shitty job. We've all done them. Um,
yeah.
but working every day of the week to keep yourself in the algorithm, having to jump through YouTube's various hoops, having no manager to go to ask for assistance or help or any guidance apart from YouTube's YouTube channel, and then being demonetized, not being able to get cooperation or communication to tell you why, etc., and things like
Mm,
that. It's a really, and when people sort of can mass report, there's very little in the way of support for creators who go through that. They can be taken off, they can have their channel struck on multiple occasions falsely, they can be falsely copyright claimed. There's very little in the way of support. So if it
mm,
was an actual job, well, it would be a pretty crap one,
yeah.
you know.
Uh, It's pretty isolating when you put it that way, right? There's not
Mm-hmm.
much support in terms of
It's
the actual
all
platform.
on you. Yeah, it's all on you. And it's a lot of pressure for anybody. And I can see why people like, if people start to be less successful, what you would need to do if you're looking to succeed, you know what I mean? If you're looking to make YouTube your living, my advice would be take the feedback that you're getting and make changes. But
Mm.
people don't. They repeat the same process over and over again and expect things to improve. It's like the definition of insanity, isn't it?
By repeating the same mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's something integral to YouTube though, right? That actually, if anyone is coming to YouTube already with too much narcissism or too much need, that something within YouTube, the way the algorithm works, the way that it rewards drama and such, that
Yes.
that can make the problem worse,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. Drama is an appalling problem on YouTube. So much so that recently some of the drama has just escalated beyond all of the telling of it. It's not drama anymore, it's people's lives, people's children,
Mm.
people's jobs. Um, and to a certain extent, it was always a bit like that, but it was very like tit for tat.
Yeah.
The drama community was very tit for tat, back and forth. I don't like this person. I don't like you. You're wrong for this. And it was obviously, I'm not going to lie, drama is entertaining to watch if you're not in the middle of it. It
Well,
attracts
true.
views.
Well, this is the
Um,
thing. This is the thing about drama. Like, drama obviously has a bad connotation on here, right? But
mhm.
drama in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing because drama
No,
is part of life. It's actually, it can be interesting.
well,
But
that's
the
why
key,
people watch soap operas and reality
that's
TV
right.
shows. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think the key thing is when it's contrived, right? When it's not real drama, when it becomes a
Mm.
part of the formula, right, for channels to succeed, because that's how they've noticed that that's where the success comes from, right? So
Hmm.
without a doubt, it becomes rewarding
Hmm.
to not just have the drama, even if it's genuine, to keep it going, right? It becomes a sort of feedback loop,
Yeah,
and
uh,
it's going to encourage a little bit of dishonesty, right?
absolutely. And we see it play out all the time. There's always whenever there's a mild infraction against some people, there is mass hysteria on the channel. Histrionics, crying, lashing, oh, they want me dead, all of that bullshit. None of it's true,
Hmm.
but it does get attention and super chats and donations, doesn't it? So,
Yeah.
and the creators in the Krama community aren't the only people who, some of them, not all of them, do it. Aren't the only ones. It's social media as a whole. They all do it. They do it on TikTok as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I was talking to someone, someone that's more in the actual drama community per se, right? Where that's the
Hmm.
actual, that's the main concept is drama. And I was actually saying to him, you wouldn't believe it, but there's probably at the moment a lot more contrived drama over in the true crime side of things than there actually is
Yep.
in the drama side, you know?
Hmm. I would agree with that. I would agree with, because it gets views, the drama and then the fight amongst each other. How
Mm,
much of that's contrived and how much it isn't. But I do know that if it's contrived or not, it's embellished. And I also know that creators who lack integrity and aren't very good people to start with will go to extremes and go real life very quickly in order to receive a response or escalate that situation to make
mm,
that to and fro continue. And that's really dangerous.
mm. I guess the key thing is like that word integrity, right? And
Hmm.
your motivations when you first come to the platform is going to dictate what if you end up going down that tunnel, you know? Because I think once you start down that kind of thing, then how do you maintain it, right?
But
Like
you're not
I've
going anywhere
seen,
good after that, are you? Let's face it.
well, yeah, because it can be. I mean, I've just like looking on the outside casually, I can kind of sense it from some creators, right, that have found themselves in that tunnel, right, and then they
Hmm.
try now and then to cover something totally different, like what they maybe initially came on the platform for, like true crime, something that doesn't have drama essentially with other
Hmm.
creators, right?
Yeah.
And they really struggle. And you can almost see a sort of panic in the air, because it's not working.
No. Yeah, because you can only, I mean, you can repeat the same thing over and over again and get the similar response, but sooner or later the trick gets old and people start to see the repeated behavior. You need to learn some new tricks, and some people don't. They just continue the same thing. I just want to address Glamour Skill's comment there about what does that say about people who seek that sort of stimulation. I think for me, it's because people get invested. They get invested in a creator, and then when there's drama between creators, they feel the need to defend the creator that they like, and then by proxy become part of this
Hmm.
drama themselves because they want to defend people who are hurt or seem to be
Hmm.
hurt.
Hmm.
And it just they become part of the to and fro, and it's almost like interactive drama.
Yeah, I was see just to think about cults in general. Um, there was something I was doing a bit of research on there recently and having a discussion about, which is one of the most famous cults ever, right? Which was the Jim Jones
Hmm.
cult. Like,
The
and
famous Kool-Aid cult. Yes.
yeah, that's where Kool-Aid came from, right?
Yep.
Flavor Aid laced with cyanide. But
Delicious.
yeah, but I had never really looked into it into too much detail until recently.
Hmm.
But see, when I did, right, it's absolutely staggering. Like, no matter how much power this guy had in terms of his personality, the power to persuade, the power to get people to believe in him and the things that he was saying,
Mm-hmm.
for people to feel a part of something, a movement or a tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Like even bearing that all in mind, it's pretty incredible that he was capable of getting, it was somewhere in the region of 900 people all to go along with this sudden suicide, you know?
Well, he was a disgusting manipulator, Jim Jones. He was, you what's now become sort of the quintessential cult leader. He he used the disenfranchised. He used people who were financially not benefiting a lot of the time, and he gave them a place to belong, and he made them feel like they were welcome there and that he loved them. And those people were vulnerable to that. And of course, he's very charismatic, as cult leaders tend to be.
You have to be, right?
Yeah, well, yes. And obviously so confident in the bullshit that he's spouting that people will believe him. And all cult leaders have these gifts. I say gifts, use that
Mm,
term lightly. Um, and that's what they do. They manipulate people who are possibly vulnerable a lot of the time, don't have a place to go, or people who will just fall for that charisma. And obviously, the people who did not agree to drink the Kool-Aid that day were forced to
that's
die.
right. Like I just found out that they were actually forcibly injected with the cyanide.
Yeah.
And Pink there saying not all wanted to go along with Jim Jones, yeah, because I think
Hmm.
a few of them tried to escape.
Yes.
There was a TV crew making a documentary just prior to when this all happened, and I think they ended up getting attacked and most of them killed, right? By
I think
the
somebody came, a senator or somebody came to visit, and he
yeah
tried to take some of them out, like out of the camp.
yeah
Um, and there was a shootout, I think, at the airport,
yeah
and they were killed because obviously, and this is a lesson to you, this is what happens when you act out against the great cult leader. Don't try and leave. The
mm,
fact that he took them all the way to that isolated, hot, sweaty place
mm,
spoke volumes. And it's supposed to be that Nevada,
mm.
that place to be, and they were all full of promise and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and effectively just lived their lives as sort of trafficked people.
Crazy, right? This was down in I think Guyana in South America.
Hmm.
But even bearing that all in mind, right? Probably most of these people were lacking in certain things. That's why they ended up in this situation. But just the sheer enormity of the numbers,
Hmm.
just the law of odds. You think that, a higher proportion of them just would have seen the light earlier and tried to escape, right? It's just so incredible to me that so many people could be um,
Hoodwinked,
hoodwinked.
for want of a better term. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's very possible though. That's all you need is that combination of agreement and ingredients, and these people aren't stupid either. But what they're doing is, I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It puts human connection pretty high up on there, and there's a reason for that. We want to feel connected to something. We want to feel like we're part of something. And if we haven't got a really good and clear example of that in our real life, for whatever reason, whether we have a disability and we can't leave the house much, we don't get out much, we're quite
Mm,
isolated where we live, that can then be found in those kind of environments, the
mm,
look for those kind of people, and also on the internet, because the internet's
mhm.
accessible from your house.
Exactly. All you need to do is press two or three buttons and you're there, right? You're
Yes.
metaphorically in Guyana if you want to be, right?
Hmm.
You're there
Exactly.
listening to Jim Jones if you want
This
to,
we're
really
in this
quickly.
community, yes, and there are many creators on social media who have that kind of setup, who they have that kind of zealous setup,
Yeah.
you know, where
Yeah. Don't leave the camp, right?
you can't
All.
leave. Yeah, you don't leave, and if you do leave, you are made an example of.
Hmm. You need to be isolated, right?
That's right. You need to be isolated and made an example of, and all cults work the same. And the fact that people, well, society as a whole, apart from us who've seen it and been there, done that, are slow to make the connection between cults and online cults.
And it's definitely appropriate to talk about, right? On the face of it, it might seem over the top, but the
It's
same
not.
mechanisms, it's the same mechanisms that are going on, right? The same
Hmm.
psychological mechanisms.
Yes, the
And people
same
get
techniques.
genuinely hurt,
Hmm.
you know?
They
I
really
mean,
do.
Antimony is saying, check out Hitler's Willing Executioners by Daniel Goldhagen.
Good show.
Yeah, I'll definitely
Have a
check
look
that
at that.
out. Actually,
Oh, thank you, Smith.
it reminds me of something that Jordan Peterson used to speak about. Like he's someone that's obviously done a lot of work looking into the psychology of the human condition, and he often refers to the fact that after doing a lot of work like on himself and a lot of self-discovery, he was bringing up the thing about the Nazi prison guards in the camps, and what they were capable of doing, you know,
Hmm.
under the Nazi regime. And they were actually capable of the most horrendous inhumanity of, you know, these poor prisoners, getting them to pick up an incredibly heavy sack of salt, walking all the way to the end of the camp with it. Once they got there, they were ordered to just bring it all the way back. You know, just it was nothing
It's just
other
a test of
than
obedience.
a test of obedience, and also an actual enjoyment came over these these human beings to do this to these people, right? Like
Hmm.
it was more than just control. There was something within them that to see another human being reduced to literal humiliation was somehow rewarding for them, right?
It's a different form of bullying. It's power. You're exuding power over that person.
But here's a key thing as well. This is like what Jordan Peterson admitted, right? He said that he thinks that under the right circumstances, he would have been capable of being one of those prison guards
I
and
think most
taking
people
that
would.
satisfaction, which is quite a
In
scary
that
thought, right?
circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah, because we'd all like to think that all these prison guards, everyone that signed up to become a Nazi, that they were all just inherently evil, right? They were monsters.
Well, no,
It's
they're
just
just
not that
people.
true.
No.
Exactly, right? They're just
But by
people.
that time, the Jewish people in Nazi Germany had been so maligned and there'd been so much propaganda and they'd seen what happened to everybody else who disagreed with that particular mindset. That's what happens. Hitler ruled by fear. And with fear comes conversion. You comply or you die.
Yeah,
So
and
you're going to do that because, and when you are bullied by somebody bigger and more powerful than you, what do you then seek to do as a human being? You seek to bully those weaker than yourself
you
because
pass it
otherwise,
down,
where is
right?
your self worth? Yes,
Mm.
that's how I perceive that.
Yeah, that's so true. And what Jordan Peterson would say that you would you would naturally assume that having the awareness that that capability was within you would be quite self-destructive, right? It would make you feel a certain kind of way about yourself. But what he says is that going through that quite dark realization about himself and about the human condition gave him the absolute concrete knowledge that no matter what the circumstances in his life, you know, some imagined future, if he ever was in that situation, he knew for certain because he'd went through that discovery, he would never ever become the Nazi guard,
Mhm.
ever, you
Yeah,
know.
something I do called shadow work. If you can't accept the nastiest parts of yourself, you're not going to make the most of the best. It's like learning a personal history. You do things and you think, right, okay, I'm not doing that again, but it's a bit deeper than that. You've got to consider circumstances and what you would actually do and what you tell people you would do,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then move towards the better part of that for your
yeah,
own well-being and for the happiness of people around you.
yeah. And I think it's just an acceptance of the human condition, right? That we're all part of the same species, right?
We're all a little bit shit.
We're we
We're
all
all
have
a
the
little bit
potential.
shit, and that's okay. That's okay. But we have to work on ourselves, don't we, to make ourselves better people, to treat other people better. You
And
know.
that's the key thing, though, right? If you don't go through some sort of process of discovery, right, in
Hmm.
terms of what the human condition is capable of, then you're
Hmm.
more likely to become that Nazi guard or
Yes.
a lunatic moderator on a cultish channel. You know,
But
you're
the key to it is to admit you're wrong. You admit that that's wrong. You admit that what you've done is wrong or how you feel is wrong, and you change it. But you need to acknowledge that you've done something wrong first. Um, Recently, there's people who have like broken away from stuff, but they're still not admitting what they did wrong in that process while they were within that community. And until they do that, they're not going to heal.
why is it
Time.
why is it why is it so hard, Cass, for some people to simply either apologize or acknowledge mistakes? A lot
I
of
think
people
it's
find that hard.
I think it's low self-esteem. I think that they think less of themselves and they're worried about the judgment of other people. You have to let go of the judgment of other people. You fess up, and
Mhm,
if people forgive you, they forgive you. You're not apologizing for forgiveness. You're apologizing because it's the right thing to bloody do. The person who you're apologizing to, and I've apologized to people on here, they are in no way obliged to accept my apology.
mhm.
That's about me doing the right thing. People
I
who
like
say,
that.
I know people say, you apologize for you, you forgive. But to me, forgiveness, the concept of forgiveness is great if it's the right thing to do for you. But for some people, it's like a subtle form of gaslighting.
Mm,
You need to forgive that person
mm,
to let it go. You don't have to be angry at them. You can still not forgive them.
mm.
Anger's the killer. Anger's the thing
That's
that eats you up.
so true, right? And if you think about it, even if you have a justifiable reason to be angry, who is
Hmm.
the ultimate victim of that anger?
Well, it's you because
It's you,
the person you're angry at doesn't give a shit.
precisely, right? Precisely.
And revenge doesn't work.
No,
It's great in concept, but if you're getting revenge because somebody's murdered somebody that you love, it doesn't bring them back. Doesn't make you
yeah,
feel any better. This is widely documented from people who've taken revenge.
mm.
Apart from that one woman who killed her husband after years of abuse, and she says, "Yes, I'd kill the bastard again."
I would dig him up and do it again, right?
Yes, I loved her.
Like
I hate to
Cromwell.
say it. Yes, I hate to say it, but you know, I mean, anybody who's been from a domestic abuse background who knows anything about it, and she said that, and I was like, yeah, you know what, I understand. It's not something I would do myself, but I understand.
You understand the motivation, right?
I do. I understand it, where that would come from. So apart from her, a couple of others who said they don't have any regrets, most people will say, it didn't actually change anything.
Mm,
Um, you know, so
yeah,
it takes a lot of time and energy as well. Do I really want to give me time and energy to somebody that I don't like or that's done me
yeah.
wrong? Nah.
So I think what's at the root of it, right, is that some people care too much about what everyone or particular people think of them, right?
Yep.
Which, when you simmer that down, that's like you say, an insecurity that they have, right? They don't have enough
Mhm.
confidence in who
You have
they
to
are
stop
themselves.
giving a shit what people think of you. Because what happens is, if you're honest about how you feel, if you're honest about what you've done, and you say, look, I did this, it was really shit, I pulled my hands up, shouldn't have got involved or whatever. And if they forgive you and if they speak to you again, then great. If they don't, then you know where you stand with them and you can get on with your life.
Yeah, Helen says karma, leave it to karma. That's my philosophy. Do you think
Well,
karma exists? Cause
well, I believe that if we're talking about energy and science, and theoretically, yes, what you give out should be returned to you. Um, I do have seen karma in effect, but sometimes it takes a really, really bloody long time, and sometimes you don't see it because you're not in contact with the person who receives the karma when they get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um, there's a gentleman, I say gentleman, I'm going to use a random reference, who it was lived in a neighborhood I used to live in, and his thing was poisoning cats. He used to poison the local cats, and everybody knew he was doing it, but nobody could prove it. And he got a terribly painful disease and died very quickly. And some people would say that's an example of karma. Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder. I hope there is such a thing as a kind of natural justice, you know, whether it comes in this life or the next life, I don't know.
Well, that's it. If you believe in karma, it saves you the bother of getting yourself all bent out of shape, trying to get revenge, because that's just a waste of your time and energy when you could be off doing wonderful things and living your best life and doing magical, sparkly shit.
Here.
Yeah.
So here's a question then for you. Looking at everything, would you say you have any regrets over your experience on YouTube? Or do you are you still do you still think there's more pros than cons
I'm
to
not
being on
sure I regret anything for all that it was painful.
Mm.
And it was.
Yeah.
Everything that I was involved with was really painful. I'm better for it. And I feel like life was teaching us a really harsh lesson. Like,
Mm.
stop being there for people who you've got no reason to be there for.
Mm.
Stop supporting people. Stop taking people's word for things.
Hmm.
Stop putting your other people's needs above your own, I think was the key message. Because that's
Yeah.
what I was doing. In all of those circumstances, I was able to be manipulated
Mm.
because I was putting somebody else's needs above mine. Because not only did I not believe I was worthy of putting myself first at the time,
Mm.
but also the people who were who were doing this to me thought that their needs were more important than mine. So you had that combination. But so I don't regret anything because it taught me a lot. And it's put me in a position where I'm forever going, careful, don't do that.
Yeah.
People who tell you they are good people are usually not. If a good person is a good person, you can tell. They don't have to bloody tell you that they are. If somebody goes from one drama to another, to another, to another, to another, they are the common denominator.
Mm.
Don't tell anybody anything confidential about your family unless you're absolutely sure that you're in a safe place, or yourself until you're absolutely sure you're in a safe place, and don't let your guard down. And if something seems fishy, something seems disingenuous to you, trust your gut because it probably is.
I'm glad you said that. Because I would kind of I would say I would it's the same for me pretty much. You know, overall, you know,
Mm-hmm.
now sitting at this point, then I don't have any regrets at all.
No, I don't. I did at the time. I did when it first happened. Oh my God, it was horrible. With the J Bells thing as well, where I'm conned into thinking this woman's, lost her husband and then a baby, and then she has a brain tumor, and all this time we're having personal chats, and I'm confiding information in her from my past. Not only is she passing my experience of abuse off as her own, but she's also taking little bits of things that are completely innocent that I've told her, like that I'm shit with money because I've got ADHD. I didn't know I had ADHD at the time. I just thought I was a shit person, right? But I just forgot about stuff. It's not that I'm deliberately going, I'm not going to pay for that. Sorted now that I know what it is, I can put coping strategies in place for it and deal with it. But back then I was like, I'm so shit with money, just, yeah. And she, the J Bells turned that into, I extorted £5,000 out of her by threatening to tell people where she lived.
Wow. For anyone that's not aware of this story of J Bells, I've seen quite a lot on YouTube, but this story is the one of the craziest
Yeah.
stories that there is out there. I think it does not get worse than this, right? What this person did and the amount of people that she victimized, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Lots of
mean,
people.
just give some of the bullet points, right, as to what she actually did, right?
Okay, so
Like
I mean, she was doing this in real life before she'd even done it on the
yeah.
internet. There was a lady who was a professor in England, wonderful lady, still friends with her, who was convinced that this woman was in witness, that J Bells was in witness protection. that she didn't have any money, that she was in a dire situation, that she'd been a victim of abuse. None of that is true. But she was buying her shopping. She'd lent her £20,000 at one stage, or her parents had. So she's paid a little bit of that back, I think, but not anywhere near as much as all of it. Now, to me, she was the biggest victim of them all, but this was happening before she even came on the internet, but she has a pattern of this in her past. When she was a young girl, she contacted somebody at a Jewish temple in America that claimed she was Jewish and she was a prisoner and stuff. It was all very far-fetched, but she has a history of this. But then she gets on the internet and she appears on Abby Ramlin's channel, pregnant, with a teacup propped on her pregnancy bump, chatting away, just like any other panelist. Quite charming, very British sounding.
Yeah.
And, claims tells everybody she was born in New York, tells Carolyn that she's and the rest of us, that she's a forensic psychologist, but her family were murdered in terrible circumstances in New York, which is where she was born. So she is now she has to keep her identity very secret. She can't reveal her identity to anybody. And I'm thinking, okay, fair dues. So this is afterwards though, because and then she phones in and she tells all that she's lost her husband. Her husband's died of encephalitis. So I get put in touch with her alongside somebody else from the channel who I won't mention because she's not here to speak up for herself, but there's no bad feeling there. But she got in touch with her as well, and we both sort of supported her through the loss of her husband, one day at a time. We did not know. She said that she'd been waiting for her husband to return from abroad because he was also some sort of traveling professor. He was a doctor. I'm saying this like it's true. It's actually really not. It's absolute bullshit. So, and she'd been waiting for him to come back, and she was due to have the baby soon. So, being a community online, we had a baby shower, a virtual baby shower for her, and we got her all this baby stuff. And she was, and then she went into labour and she was in the hospital. And who Carolyn was contacting through this time was this dog walker of hers, the person who looked after our dog, who apparently had taken all the stuff into the house and set it up, etc. But of course, it wasn't a dog walker. This person doesn't exist. It was J-Bells. So, but she was using like email to contact Carolyn instead of a phone. But she also, when she was in touch with the professor from England, she was using voice changers and pretending to be doctors in phone calls and things like this. So obviously, again, the pattern of behaviour. So obviously she gets close to Karen, and I'm friends with her the whole time. She then becomes friends, unfortunately, apologies to Libby Lisa, but with Libby Lisa because of me. And, we're sort of friends and we're all share stuff. But then I sort of got isolated out with the group after J-Bells had made some comment. And this is after she told us on a Zoom call that she had some sort of terminal cancer. And Carolyn, to her credit, had contacted like almost every medical provider in the United States looking for a way to cure this.
Okay.
To prevent this from occurring and get some sort of experimental treatment. And of course, she declined that treatment. Well, because she was lying.
What was her reason?
Well, because she just kept saying she would do it. She would do it. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm well enough at the minute, was usually the excuse. She used to fake seizures.
Right.
She used to twitch her face, and she would often put like an eye patch over one eye because she said she couldn't take the light.
Wow.
In her eye. So this is obviously, and this is in one-to-one Zoom calls and WhatsApp phone calls. This is not like on the internet. This is how far the deception went. I know this is bullet points, but it doesn't really work in bullet points, I'm afraid.
I know, no.
Yeah. And then the next thing I know, obviously I get isolated. Her and Lisa become close. Lisa, along with Carolyn and Scooter and a few other people, believe the lies that are told about me. I'm a cocaine addict and I've extorted money out of her and I'm sending her threatening emails. None of this is true. In the meantime, I'm just devastated and going through a mental breakdown because I don't understand why nobody's speaking to us anymore, and I don't understand what I did wrong, and I don't understand why Carolyn's treating us like I'm something she's scraped off her shoe. And I was like, okay, right, fine. And I thought,
And
right, so okay, just get on with it, Kaz. Let it go. Get on with it. And then I get a message in Messenger sometime over Christmas. I think it might have been Boxing Day. Kaz, go and look at Carolyn's channel. J Bells was fake. And I'm watching this live stream. There was a message sent to me at about 1 a.m. the previous evening, and it was out of the blue. Bear in mind, these people have not spoken to me for ages. I had a one-off message from Carolyn going, "Are you there?" At 1 o'clock in the morning, my time. No, I wasn't. I was asleep. And he has the whole tale. She was absolutely fake, and that's how I found out. I found out watching a live stream.
My God.
And then, as it transpired, a few things were told to me that had been said about me. I was all solidarity. Yes, J Bells is really bad. Nobody should have done this. But then I found out that anything I'd said in confidence to other people was passed straight to J Bells.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nothing that I said was treated in confidence. They were all discussing us with each other. And after I'd had everybody's back, and after I'd given the support that I had, that was really disappointing and hurtful. And that was when I chose to pack up my little troubles in the old kit bag and leave. And I've never spoken to J Bell since. I just sent her a message on WhatsApp saying, "What a fucking horrible thing to do." Well, I feel stupid. And I just blocked her.
My
Done.
God.
So that's kind of my side of the story, apart from and then we've got After I Left and all the histrionics that followed after that. But that's irrelevant to what happened with J Bells, really, because that's just a repeating pattern of that person.
It's like a horrible, despicable double whammy, right? Because it sounds like she actually specifically targeted you to try and isolate you for her own means, right? Somehow that was going to be her strategical move, right? Because you were obviously well known in the community, right? And
Well, there was a bit of that, but there was also the fact that I caught her in a lie about a week before this started to go down. So she told me she was born in New York, but when she was talking to other people on a Zoom call, she said she was born in Israel. And I said, "I thought you said you were born in New York." And she went, "No, I was raised in New York. I was born in Israel." And that face, she was not pleased. And I think that was the beginning of the end for me.
Yeah. But then you've got the other thing is the way that you find out after the fact that people were passing on things that you were saying behind your back. So you've got that double sort of
Well, that and everybody believed all this bullshit that she was spouting, that I was sending threatening messages to her work, where she didn't work, by the way, calling her an FNC and saying I was going to kill her, and saying she was terrified to leave her house in case I broke in. I can't even be bothered to walk down to the bus stop, never mind go down to London to break into somebody's bloody house.
God.
I would be a really shit stalker, so I'm far too lazy.
And none of them came to you like directly to try and
Not
check.
one.
Yeah.
That's another thing she was telling them. She was telling them I was suicidal, that my husband was a malignant narcissist, and that he was abusive to me. And not one of these people at any juncture came to me to even ask if I was okay. That's really hurtful.
Yeah.
Even they don't have to say, "Is this happening?" Just, "Are you okay?" Because I would do it if it was the other way around.
Yeah.
I would be really worried if people were threatening things like that I was told, that she said I was threatening.
It's like a double betrayal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So that's basically what the crack was. Evie was there with us the whole time. So she's obviously in the chat piping up because she was there through the whole thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it's really, I mean, she's not the only one. There are a few people who are still with us sort of in my community, and other people that I've made from other communities who were there all the way through or most of it.
It's such a crazy story. You could literally turn that into a Netflix documentary. Just literally everything about her story was a lie.
Hmm.
Everything, right?
But
And
she did it to
all,
everybody as well, because people think that, I'll make something very clear. People think that Carolyn was involved in this. I don't think she was for a second. I don't think she knew. Um, I don't know what sort of things J Bells would have done for Carolyn, sort of as part of that community. I can't speak to that. But what I can say is that I think she hoodwinked everybody. Everybody involved was a victim of J Bells.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, she
Hmm.
definitely hoodwinked Carlin as well. But I mean, my perception is that she became very valuable to Carlin, right? Going by
Well,
what she was
she
telling.
told her this long story about that, she's a forensic scientist, that she was going to be talking to Chris Watts,
Yeah,
that she had properties in Italy and New York, you know.
yeah.
Sorry, All My Sleeping Cat, she visited Emma, but yes, she did. The videos are still up of the visit. Um,
How long did she stay with her? A few days?
I think it was at least a week, it might have been two.
Wow.
But she paid for her own flight, so hurrah. Yeah.
And like all the kind of what was quite revealing as well though is when all this came crashing down, right?
Hmm.
The to most of us on the outside, right? It seemed that the impression that was being given was that, as always, Carlin is the only victim that mattered in that
Oh yeah,
situation.
that was something she accused me of. Funny enough, like Kazbat's gotta be the only victim. I was like, no, there's bigger victims than everybody who was on the internet. There's another one entirely before that, and all the other people she associated with, she lied to.
Mm.
Like in real life,
In
were the
real
bigger
life.
victims in the circumstance because they were all lending her money and cleaning her house and running around after her. We were only deceived sort of across Zoom and across the internet. And yes, financially, there was stuff that I bought her stuff. I used to buy her bottles of Prosecco on the regular because it cheered her up and I thought she was dying.
And I've seen a lot of people as well say, like, how could anyone have fallen for this, right? Because when you hear the story,
Oh,
just
God,
without any context, right, it does seem pretty
ridiculous.
incredible, right? But
Yes.
there's, I think, like, I think that Carolyn allowed herself to be conned by her, right? Because of Carolyn's character, right? I think she's quite, to me, she's incredibly selfish, and I think she knew what she was hoping to get from that, right? The whole thing with Chris Watts, the interview, um, all the information that J Bells was giving her, she was seeing all the good things for her in that regard, right?
Hmm.
But for people that she was actually befriending that were in her community, like, it was it
Well, I'm
something
thinking,
like
what was it? What was in it for me, though? That's the question I keep asking myself. I can see what the motivations were with Carolyn, because she had information. And the irony is, J Bells used to give Carolyn alleged forensic psychology information on the Watts case that came directly from me, and Carolyn would repeat it. Those were my theories, not hers.
wow, wow,
Like the just world hypothesis. Because I don't think Carolyn really watched my content much. I think she'd leave the odd comment, but I don't think she watched it because it's not hers. It's not about her. So why would she watch
oh,
it?
if she's not at the center of it, then no, she wouldn't
Yeah,
do that.
exactly. But she did, um, you know, basically, I don't think she watched me content on the Watts case, so I don't think she knew about the theories that I was coming forward with and the evidence that I was presenting. And as such, J Bells could just go to Carolyn, well, I think it's this, and I think it's that, and I think it's the other. And Carolyn would repeat this, not knowing that it had come directly from me.
God,
So
she's
what it looks like, if you look back on the video or timeline, it looks like Carolyn's copying my content, but I don't think she was deliberately copying it. I think it went from me to J Bells back to
yeah,
Carolyn.
she was the conduit, the willing conduit, right?
Yeah.
That's so
Um,
sick.
it's quite funny, really. But yeah, I mean, you've got to laugh at it now but it was really horrendous at the time. You can't believe what's happening. And this will be everybody that was involved, like the rug's pulled out from you. But like,
Yeah.
I wasn't the biggest victim in that situation at all. Not by a long chalk. None of the people online were. It was a horrendous deception. It was heartbreaking. But I often find myself like, how the hell did I get involved in this situation? But when somebody tells you that they've been through such a horrendous tragedy,
Mm.
And the play on your empathy, like
It's
I
a drip
found
drip effect
empathy
as
was
well, though,
played
isn't
on.
it? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, like I imagine someone like her would do such homework, right? They would look into, you know, the kind of like what people would find emotional, what kind of story that she could concoct, right? That would um drag sympathy from the people that she was targeting,
Hmm.
and the stories that she came out with. I'm
Yeah.
sure she didn't land this whole story in one go. It was a
No.
drip drip effect, right?
No, and she's pinched bits of her story from other people that she's met through time. I'm certain because that's how they seem authentic. I mean, she sent me a picture of a small baby on an incubator. To this day, I don't know whose baby that is, but I know it's not hers.
Did she not steal her sister's story in some regard as well? Like,
She stole some. Well, our sister's the one who was qualified.
right,
Our sister's the qualified one in that respect. Our sister is a wonderful person. I did notice that you and BBT were watching the live stream that had her on it, and she
that's
doesn't
right.
say much, but you can see that she's a very sort of forthright, open, and friendly person. She's lovely. That's one of the great things that's come out of this. I met her. We don't
Mm,
chat all the time, but she's just a wonderful person.
yeah,
Um, her and the lady who was, at university, they both look lovely people,
the
and
other professor. Yeah.
you can see how they were manipulated. She oftentimes will manipulate these softies, these
Well,
people who are, have a spades of empathy.
and see, that's the great danger, right, of being targeted by someone like that, or even like a terrible experience on YouTube from someone that's doing something similar like to that, right? Is that it can completely destroy your confidence
Hmm.
in yourself and in people, can destroy your trust in people. And the big
Hmm.
danger is that it damages you long term where you're too much of a closed book, right? Because you
Yeah.
won't let anyone in after that. But of course, the kind of people that are capable of doing something like that are so much in the minority,
Yes, there's
you
not
know?
many of people about who will do that to you. Not really.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things, it's not something we need to be widely concerned about. It was a really unusual situation, so much so other stories like that have been made into documentaries, etc., because they're so bloody weird.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, the kind of the evidence in it is shown just by how many people she actually conned, right?
Hmm.
Like professors, her sister,
All the people at uni that were in our general circle, all the people at our uni, because she was a student, not a professor.
that's so crazy.
And she wasn't a professor. She wasn't a student of psychology either.
But she seemed to be quite well educated, regardless, though, right? Was that
Oh, she's smart. She's not that
she would
smart, but
have
she's
to be
smart enough.
smart. She would have to be. I mean, can you imagine the amount of work that she must have done just to
Well,
keep
I
on
think
top of
she
her
she
lies?
just collected information on people all day long because she wasn't attending university. She was just sitting on the internet gathering information on people
Wow.
and in service of, and sometimes just for our own enjoyment.
What do you think were her main motivations? I mean, obviously attention and money, but what else was going on in her
I
head? Do
think
you think?
she's got serious mental health issues. Serious, but she whether and when they did a confrontation with her that was in a Zoom recording that will probably likely never be public. Um, the one that I wasn't invited to do this because I didn't find out till after the fact because I wasn't deemed important enough to be told. So, but um,
An
so
insult,
I
right?
didn't get my chance to confront her. But to be honest, I wasn't that interested in speaking to her ever again anyway. So it's like whatever. Um, but she continued to lie about me in that video, but she also basically said that she needed help. She needed professional help, and it's the first like truthful thing I've ever heard her say. Whether she actually meant it or not is another matter
Well,
altogether.
I was going to ask you, do you know if she did get help? I mean, what's the story
No.
with her now? I mean, I know she was like reported and things, right, by all you guys, right, over there. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and the
know.
police weren't the least bit interested.
Really?
No. We all reported her, and we were told to report her to, what's it called? The fraud one, action fraud. We were told to report her to action fraud first.
Right.
And then action fraud basically said we're not taking any further action. So I made a complaint to the police because said you're doing absolutely nothing with this. And he said, look, there's no point you really making a formal complaint because really nothing will get done with it anyway because we've only got capacity to deal with so many things and this isn't deemed as serious. And I said, well, if she does something to somebody else who's more vulnerable than me and they do something to themselves or she does something to somebody else to make them hurt somebody, then I want it on record that I've reported this. I did the right thing and I told you what she's doing and you did nothing. And he said, fair enough, we've got our name on record, so if anything else pings up in future, the information will link. And that was the best I could get from them.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I mean, does someone have to actually be physically harmed for them to like
Pretty much
see potential?
She would have to be at my door with a knife, I think, before anybody emotional hurt doesn't really wash. Like nobody really cares about it. Financial hurt does, but not to the tune of £20,000 apparently, because that wasn't that important either.
Star Stuff is asking, did Amber, a true victim, cross MRB's path before or after J Bells? How did that relationship end?
I'm not sure. Star Stuff, I don't know myself, which is very bizarre because I was part of the community at the time that she was there. She just seemed to vanish. And I know she was referred to J Bells by Carolyn, and that was the last we heard of her.
Yeah, I don't recall an Amber, but like I wasn't around all that much, to be honest.
I think they're talking about Jim, what's his name? That horrible narcissistic monster who travelled around with his children in his van. Is it Tim Jones rather than Jim Jones? People in the chat, help me out. I've me true crime cogs need dusting off. It's been a while. But he was smoking.
Yeah, Evie says Tim Jones. Yeah.
Thank you, sweetheart. He was a really horrible narcissistic monster. He had custody of the children. He was smoking that cannabis replacement that they smoke in prisons. I forget what it's called. But he basically murdered the children and drove around with them in his van for days. And my heart broke for this woman when she testified. And she just broke down and she went by babies. And it was heartbreaking. And she was coming on to channel and obviously talking about her experience. We followed it all the way through, and then she was referred to J Bells, and that was the last we heard of her. Timothy Jones Jr. Thank you, Snoop. Get full name, Tim Jones. Horrible man. Horrible man. And my heart broke for her. Hi, Mandy Hall. So, yeah. So I don't know is the short answer. Sorry, I do ramble on. Force a habit from the past.
Fine. I'm just finding an article here. This is the guy there. Can you see the screen, yeah?
Yeah. He was a bit chunkier than that when he stood trial. I think they put him on medication, though, because he was trying to claim insanity.
Right.
Didn't wash. Jury didn't believe him.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this case. South Carolina.
Yeah, it's particularly nasty, Rabid. It's interesting if you compare it to, if you did like a compare and contrast with Watts or with, I forget his name, Chris. I forget. Killed his family and then went off on holiday. There's a few family annihilators who did that. One of them went off and got remarried.
That's him there. I recognise him there, actually. I didn't recognise him from that picture.
No, because he looks so different. Because the passage of time from when he got arrested and then they put him, I'm assuming they put him on medication or he put weight on in jail.
Yeah. So that'd be around about 2014 then, that picture.
Yeah,
I definitely recognise that picture.
Yeah, that's him there. Nasty piece of work.
God.
Really don't like that man. Horrible. And the manipulation of what he did to her, telling her she was useless and that she could never get a job, and like getting the children, like persuading people to give him custody of the children and then abusing them. And convincing everybody she was useless and she was an addict and she was a terrible person and he had custody of the children, then he murders them. Horrendous. absolutely horrendous case, heartbreaking.
Unbelievable. Are you still covering true crime on your channel?
Not so much on my channel. I don't get the time, unfortunately. I've got a channel called Red Wine and True Crime, which I moved all my true crime stuff onto, and I do plan to start doing podcasts. The first one I've got lined up, which if I ever get it done, because you know how life gets in the way of stuff, is about the role of homophobia in the Dennis Nielsen investigation.
Remind me
And how
who Dennis Nielsen was again.
he was David Tennant played him on ITV. Dennis Nielsen was a previous civil servant, police officer. He worked at the job centre, lived in North London, and he would pick up young gay men and murder them.
Oh, I know this one. Yeah.
And he had to move house. He lived in Cranley. He had to move house because he run out of space for bodies, and he moved house. And he was only caught because somebody found some bone in the drain. Otherwise, but these kids that he picked up, and these young men were sort of vagrants, like disowned by their families. And every time I hear the song "Small Town Boy," I think of these young boys who've run away from home because their families won't accept them, and then they're on the street, and Dennis Nielsen offers them a joint, and then they go with him, and that's them done. It's awfully sad.
Is that the channel there that I've got up on the screen, Kaz? Yeah.
Let's have a look. Yes, that's me.
Yeah, I'll put the link there in the chat.
Thank you.
So
I think there's only 2 channels called that. I think the other one's mine, but I didn't finish setting it up.
So with that case, do you suspect that there was like the fact that it was around sexuality? Do you think that played a part in it not being perhaps investigated in the right manner?
Absolutely, because there were, they were like rent boys, and a lot of them were drug addicts as well. So you get that. I've got a thing for cases where people are thought of as less than. You got it in the Peter Sutcliffe case as well, where because girls were sex workers, they were thought of as less than, so they weren't as important. It's quite common in investigation of crime, but because these were young gay men, nobody was really that interested, and it was just thought they just wandered off. They didn't pay the attention. There's a modern case that was a little bit like that, the Grinder killer case, where he was meeting people and murdering them, but they were just assuming they were gay men, so they were being flighty. No, they weren't. They were murder victims, and it wasn't treated with the seriousness that it should have been. So I'm going to be referencing that as well. If you ever want to come on and talk about it, you're more than welcome. If anybody does, it's really interesting looking at how bigotry impacts the investigation of crimes.
And it's across the board as well,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think this is one thing, because I think some of us sometimes get a little bit frustrated at the kind of social justice warrior type stuff that goes on, right? The overly political correct thing, where there seems to be this hunger and desire to be seen as having the most virtue as possible, right? But that's separate from the fact that there actually really is some cases like you mentioned, right, where it could be either sexuality, or it could even be something like race, or people that are from a lower income background,
There's a lot of that.
social class.
Missing people who are people of colour.
Yeah.
Missing cases, not investigated like they should be at all. I'm not even going to get into the other political argument about police, etc. I'm just going to leave that for tonight because that's a huge topic. But when it comes to the investigation of cases, obvious bigotry gets in the way of finding murderers.
Yeah, and just look at the cases that tend to become the ones that are more prominent in the media. There does seem to be a certain brand of victim, right? That is easy for the media. It's like the natural sort of victim that they tend to perhaps even subconsciously hone in on more than a similar case if it was a different race or someone from a lower income, even if that's even if it's not consciously happening, it's like some sort of systematic discrimination, right?
Yeah, it's ingrained. We have been told that things are a certain way for so long, we have to unlearn that behaviour. The media, society as a whole, has told us that fat people are lazy. I wish I was. I know I made a joke earlier, but I really wish I was. I work like a navvy, right? So fat people are lazy, skinny people are better. I mean, when skinny people and fat people both have equal right to exist and are both wonderful in their own right. Um, you know,
Scottish people are stingy. We just care. All we care about is money.
yeah, Geordies beat their wives. I've never beaten my wife before. So but it's like stereotypes like that are things that have carried through history,
Uh-huh.
and the impact of society and people who are in oppressed minorities, like gay people, like people of color, like indigenous people, specifically indigenous women and
Mm,
children. That's
mm,
again, that's a huge discussion and some that I plan to be having.
yeah.
Just the fact that we're told anybody is less than
Mm.
for no
Perfect,
particular reason.
perfect example is the Madeleine McCann case, right?
Hmm. Oh God.
Um, I
If
mean,
they were Fred and Tina from Barnsley, they'd
yeah,
both be in prison now for child neglect. But because the
one
doctors in whitey
hundred,
tighty,
one hundred
yeah,
percent. Yeah.
don't leave your child unattended. You just don't.
Sounds like you agree with myself on that case.
I think most people feel the same way, Rabbit. I
Yeah.
think it's just, and there they are. Every year or so they'll claim some more funding, and they'll go, where is she?
That's what
And
really angers
nobody.
people, I think, is the
Yeah.
amount of the
There's a lot
amount
of
of
weirdness involved in that case as well.
well, there's some darkness that you can go down, right? There's stuff that's pretty hard to ignore with that, right? And who
Hmm.
knows, like what people high up are going to benefit from them maintaining that narrative. You don't know how
Hmm.
many people are protecting themselves, right? That's
Yeah.
possible, especially when you look as well into some of the people that were a part of the Tapas Five, sorry, Tapas Seven, and
Yeah.
some of the things that they were up to. Like one
Hmm.
guy in particular, um,
Yeah.
is very dodgy.
I'll have to have a discussion on that at some time because that's one of the cases I want to deep dive in because basically the conclusion I came to was, regardless of whatever happened to Madeleine,
Hmm.
unfortunately, it's our parents' fault,
Yeah,
whichever way you look at it, because they should have been with her. You don't just put your kid in an apartment and nick off out for dinner and drinks. You don't.
no,
It's not. It's
no.
not what you do.
Yeah, I would love to do a deep dive on that if you're interested in doing that, Kaz.
Yeah, we could do. I mean, obviously, it'd probably take us about a year, but feel
Well,
free to pick it
true.
up in the meantime and discuss it with somebody else. I'm no gatekeeper, but I will attend and have a chat. But yeah, it's like there's so many cases like that. Look, where again, because they're well to do, there is,
Mm.
but most of society feel the same way as we do. I have no doubt about it. And also, more recently, I know it's not a murder case, but the Johnny Depp case,
Oh
where
God.
Johnny Depp has been demonized for beating his wife
Mm,
and being an abusive husband.
mm.
And here, ta-da, she's a compulsive liar who abused him.
There's something about that case that there's a reason over and above just the fact that it was a celebrity trial. There was
Hmm.
something about Amber Heard that both genders recognized in her personality, right? In her
Hmm.
deviousness, in her manipulation, right? I think we've all come across people like Amber Heard before, and I
Oh
think
yes,
that's yeah,
I know somebody who's like a twinsy. I was like, oh my
yeah.
god, all this behavior is so familiar to me.
That's
and
exactly why I think so many people were so invested in it, right? Because
mhm.
they recognize something in her
And a lot
that
of people
is
who
so,
followed me because I was covering it
yeah.
were have been victims of that kind of behavior, and that you are a victim for a while until you become a survivor, and they recognize the signs and the way they flip everything and the gaslighting and the barefaced lying and the histrionics, and it's just all of that behavior,
Mm.
and it just reeks of disingenuous.
Yeah, and to see her on the stand, right? I find it incredible, right? I mean, only Jodi Arias would compete, and maybe this guy called Anthony Tote, if anyone's aware of that case. If you watch him on the stand,
Hmm.
that's the only two people I can think of that compare in terms of the amount of ego that she had to actually not realize, not have the self-awareness of how transparent she was, her acting, right? You would assume
Yeah.
that an actress could pull that off, but I've never seen a worse performance, a more obviously transparent performance as she was on the stand. It was
Well, she's a terrible actress as well, to be fair.
true,
She's not a good actress.
true, right?
She made it even as far up as she did because of Johnny, but previous to that, it was just because she was so pretty, because she is incredibly pretty.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the reason I don't think she realizes is because she's got away with everything her whole life by acting that way.
Yeah, when you look into a little bit of her background, yeah, there's
Mhm.
a kind of little princess syndrome there. I don't think she's ever been successfully challenged in her past. She's never been told you can't have this, you know.
Don't think she has. I think she's always been a little spoiled. And the histrionics work and the lying works. And the violence works.
And I think she was unsuccessful recently. I was a bit terrified to hear that she was trying to get a retrial.
Oh, that was never going to work. It was, you know, they gave her the details that she was complaining about before the trial even started.
Yeah.
They both did voir dire. So it was just, they're just grasping at straws. And of course, Judge A there, who's ex-military, is like, I'm ex-marine, not having any of this nonsense. Basically, just threw it out.
Thank God. Solstice is saying, didn't J Bells do this from a teenage, as a
Yep.
teenager? Did she
Yeah, she
have
did.
a normal loving upbringing? Someone's Solstice is asking, yeah.
In fact, she was the golden child.
Well, did she have brother? Oh, she had one sister. Was it just one sister? Did she have any other?
A sister and a brother.
Was she the oldest?
No, she's the youngest.
She's the youngest. Right, okay.
I think she's the youngest.
So she had form from when she was a teenager.
Yes, from when she was a kid.
That's gonna, and so I'm imagining she was like, say, in her mid-30s, early 30s when this all happened recently, right?
Yeah, early 30s. I think she was 33, 34. She lied and said she was 40.
That's going to be something that's going to be pretty hard to get out of, that ingrained behavior, I mean, is she targeting someone right now as we speak,
She could be. I've done my bit.
Yeah.
I've sort of had to let that go because nobody else is going to do anything about it. I'm just like, well, I'll just move on.
I still can't believe that. There's so many of you, right, that can testify to what she's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Star stuff. Anthony Toad's testimony is out of this world bad. Yeah. Anyone that's not seen that and is not aware of the case, just go and check out his testimony during the trial. It's unbelievable.
I have to have a look.
I think Jules of Thought covered it recently.
Ah, right. I love Jules.
Oh, Jules is great, isn't she?
She is. She's fab. That so-called psychologist. Yeah.
What's that?
The so-called psychologist. That's what you got labelled with, wasn't it?
Oh, God, yeah. I think
she
there's
actually is one. Look it up.
Yeah. She actually does know what she's talking about, and she covers true crime very, very well in reality.
She does.
Thanks.
And it's not too heavy duty because she's got a nice sense of humour and she sings. So it's not like it's really heavy going.
Yeah.
She covers a lot of in-depth topics, but you don't leave feeling drained.
True. Yeah, drained.
Which you need with true crime, because it gets so serious and so upsetting that you need a bit of brevity.
I'm going to put the panel link in the chat if anyone wants to come up and discuss anything that we've mentioned, just the topic in general, your experience within YouTube, things that you regret.
If people have got questions as well, feel free to ask them. I'll answer them as honestly as I can.
Yeah. If anyone's got a question, fire it in the chat for either of us. Thanks, Snoop. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Snoop. Did every Soul Sister said, did everyone you know report it? No, not everyone. A couple of people didn't. Some people claim to have done, but there's no evidence that they did on the US side. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying I never saw any evidence of that. Everybody in the UK who reported it provided evidence that they did.
And you think it was just in terms of the fact that it wasn't a huge amount of money involved, that they just didn't give it the attention,
It's
right?
just priorities of the police. They've probably got bigger fish to fry, in all honesty, than some petty little liar. Because although it's very hurtful to us on an individual basis when you look at what crimes are actually going on, I can see that, but it's still frustrating, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I'm just worried about other people, because I'm out now, done. You know, I've got through it, fine.
And
but
there's no one
other
that you
people may
know,
not be.
obviously, on YouTube that are still involved with her, right? I'm sure.
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of, yeah.
Not that I know of.
Well, that sounds.
Well, I can't say
dead
yes or
pool
no
there, maybe.
because I suspect people
Do
might
you?
be. I
Do you?
do, but I can't. I don't know, so I wouldn't say yes or no. But what I feel about that and what I suspect is not necessarily the truth. So,
And do you suspect, like, would there be names that we'd be aware of? Do you think?
yeah,
You really?
Mhm.
Wow.
people who were friends with her at the time.
Oh my
But I'm
God.
not saying there's any friendship or relationship there that I know of. I just know that people have spoken to her since, but I don't know if they're still speaking to her.
Got you.
That makes sense. Because I just didn't want to speak to her at all. But some people needed closure, and I get that as well. I didn't want closure because I'm just like, oh, you, basically. What
Yeah.
good was going to come of that conversation? You
Did
know.
Yeah. Did it? It obviously did its damage though for a while, right? You must have felt a certain kind of way for a while.
Yeah.
No? Yeah,
Oh, it was a little bit heartbreaking. Not gonna lie.
can imagine.
And then there was a lot. I mean, it was positive in the respect that it sorted out the wheat from the chaff. I found out who my friends were pretty damn quickly, and there was some reunification with people who were involved, and then that quickly went astray when fibs were told again, and I
Really?
was just like, I'm not having any of that. No, just no. People are people, and I'm not saying they did anything terribly, terribly wrong, but what I'm saying is, after that situation, I don't want to be lied to again. I'd been lied to enough. Thanks. I'd had me share. So yeah, I can't be bothered with people who play games and say one thing to your face and then do another thing behind your back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sis, I don't know if she did or not. I know that she said she did. But it doesn't mean that she didn't, but I didn't see any evidence of it. So,
I was shocked how little time it took that he was in the school and shot. Oh, is this another case?
yeah, this is another case.
Which case is this? Scrolling up.
Just
Oh, this is
scrolling up. Yeah,
the Parkland shooter. He's on. I think he's in the penalty phase at the moment.
right.
So it's looking like it's whether it's going to be the death penalty or not, right?
Star stuff, yeah, I feel so. I was better to cut my losses than, I was never going to get an explanation for why she did what she did because she was so full of shit. Again, you can remember I was talking about Chris Watts at the beginning of the live when I said people lie to you so much you can't believe what they're going to say. That's the circumstances that I was in, and I was like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And sure enough, when they had the confrontation with her, she just lied all the way through that as well.
Was there not some panel the MRB did where some of the people weren't aware that it was a lie? They thought it was a private Zoom call.
Yeah, they thought they were on a private Zoom call first thing in the morning, and she went live and she didn't tell them.
She's got form for that, hasn't she?
Yes, she's done that to her. Well, some of the people who've just recently left said she left them on talking privately. And
That's
they got caught
right.
saying they were going to make fake Yelp accounts and fat shaming people.
Oh, and they were trying to pretend now that that was a joke. That was not a joke. That was they were really wanting. They were really thinking about doing that.
Well, that's what I was referencing when, if you want to heal, you
Yeah.
have to acknowledge what you did and apologize and just crack on. And if
Yeah.
people will forgive you more readily if you're honest about it, I think.
Mm.
Whereas right now everybody's giving them the side eye.
Yeah.
Just
That's
say,
right.
yes, we did. We were trying to defend our friend and we thought we were doing the right thing, but we really weren't. And it was an awful thing to do, and we're sorry. I was a Pollyanna until I was chased by a serial killer. Wow.
Jesus. Yeah, I think I remember Jamie bringing that up before. Oh my God.
Good Lord.
Do you know there was someone that was almost a victim of Ted Bundy,
Yes.
that managed to escape. Can you imagine how
Yes.
that must feel?
There was a story on Reddit. Now I've heard of this on a panel as well, but I take things sometimes experiences I hear on panels with a pinch of salt. I've heard some tall stories over the years.
Mm.
But the story on Reddit was basically that it was somebody as a young child whose mother had been pulled over and they were in the car and it was Ted Bundy that had pulled them over, like they was broken down by the side of the road,
God.
which I thought better of it and drove away. Thank goodness.
Actually, there was someone I can't remember who it was. Someone on another channel once was telling me that Myra Hindley, I think it was, or no, it was either them or Rosemary and Fred West that tried
Hmm.
to abduct them, and they managed
Yeah, I think there were a
to
couple of
escape.
people who got out of their thrall,
Mm.
got out of their grip. Um, just because he lived in Gloucester, didn't he? But Rose West is in prison not far from me, and my friend knows a journalist, and he was going in to interview Rose, and they wouldn't let him go in by himself because she's so manipulative. She's that dangerous. They won't let people interview her alone.
Wow.
That's how dangerous she is.
Fred West killed himself, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Partially, I think, is because she completely turned her back on him. She
Huh.
completely disowned him. And the one thing he loved in the world was her. His mother was extremely abusive as well,
That's
like
not
in every
surprising.
way. Yeah.
A young lad escaped Myra and Ian Braden.
Myrinian. Yeah. Whew. You look back on your past and you don't fancy that happening to you. And you think about where you could have ended up. It's horrendous.
See, when you
Oh,
just
poor
think about
chap.
how much true crime goes on, I mean, obviously it's a lot more in certain countries than over here in the UK, right? But even
Hmm.
regardless, there's still so much that goes on, and you just wonder how many, potential walking time bombs are you walking past in the shopping centre, that
Hmm.
or sitting across from in a cafe somewhere.
Well, I do say you'll walk past 7 serial killers or 7 murderers in your lifetime. It's some sort of statistic like that. Um, But I mean, I grew up in school. When I was growing up in school, one of the lads I went to school with murdered his pregnant girlfriend.
Wow.
I lived in a house where somebody had been murdered.
Oh, really?
Not while I was there, obviously.
Did you find
That's
out afterwards, did you?
it's not a
After you moved
confession.
in?
No, the landlord actually told us, but I wasn't phased because I'm not scared of spooky stuff.
Did that not put you
Um,
off?
nah, nah.
Because
Well,
you,
the
you're...
rent was really cheap, and
But
I'm not scared of spooky stuff. I'm a witch. I just throw some sage at them and they'll go away. It's fine.
even so, though, right? I mean, obviously you've quite spiritual and you know
Hmm.
y-
But she wasn't there. She
you know
wasn't there,
no,
so.
but like if you're quite supernatural, right? Would that not give
Hmm.
you the heebie-jeebies just thinking
Nope.
about the energy of the place? No?
Mm-mm. The
Wow.
person who killed her didn't belong there. He was a
Right.
young lad that she'd known from where she used to live. And coincidentally, these two very lonely people, he was much younger than her, bumped into each other on a New Year in this isolated town they were living in.
Right.
And they went and got some lager, and he drank something like 16 cans of lager. And that was how that came about. And they didn't find her till 2 weeks later because she was that isolated.
God,
She had nobody.
so sad.
Well, it's exactly that. And, at least I thought, well, at least I'll keep her company if she's here. I've got nothing against people who've passed on. They're not going to hurt me. It's the living you need to worry about. But there was no sign of anything. Nothing. There was never any bother in that house. And from what I heard from the local people, they said she was no bother to anybody when she was alive. So why would she be any bother when she's passed on? And the lad was caught and he was punished. So she did get her justice.
The young lad jumped out of the window to get away from my Ronnie and Brady. He wrote a book a few years ago.
Wow. Oh, Joanna Dennehy, yeah, she kicked off. There was a bit of ructions between Joanna Dennehy and Rose West, something to do with Rose West's cell. I think they moved Joanna Dennehy either close to Rose West or into Rose West's old cell, and there was a bit of ructions, and Joanna was threatening Rose.
Oh, Merv would, without a shadow of a doubt, have recorded it. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't really a confession; it was more of a confrontation, because she admitted stuff, but only when they absolutely had her pinned, and even then, it wasn't the whole truth. It was like, it was a bit bullshitty.
Only the living bother me.
Yeah, that's it. It's the living that are the danger. Oh, good grief. So lots of lucky escapes.
It looks that way, right?
Yes. So my granny's bed and got her bedroom after she died. Didn't bother me. No, because like she's with you kind of thing.
Spirits are more honest and they release secrets.
Yeah, I think if there is another side, because obviously I'm open-minded about it, I like to think that when you pass on, you see everything as it actually is, rather than your own sort of individual
perception.
Your perception and your bigotries and your prejudices, and you just see everything how it is.
I tell you what, right? There's only one thing that has ever freaked me out in regards to supernatural, and it was when I was about 14, 15 doing the Ouija board. Have you ever done the Ouija board?
Yeah, I've done Ouija boards before. Yeah.
Did you ever get anything that freaked you out?
Nah.
No?
Not apart from my mate moving the plectrum, the thing, no.
Well, the way it went with us is it seemed almost inconceivable that it was, someone subconsciously moving it, That's what was so freaky about it.
Well, they do work. Yeah.
Do you think they do, yeah?
Well, either they work because the spirit's moving it, or the obviously your mate's moving it for a giggle, because that's possible as well, which is the most likely explanation if we're honest. But the other possibility is that a spirit is using a person who's involved as a conduit.
Kind of working through themselves, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I say I don't believe in ghosts per se, but I did get pushed down the stairs by one once.
Really?
Yeah. I used to work in a pub in a place called Chesley Street in Durham. I won't mention it because people like turn up at the door and going, "Hey, show me your ghost." But this place was well known to be haunted, and a few weird things had happened there. Like in the kitchen upstairs, you would hear clogs for some reason, like wooden shoes. You could hear people walking around with wooden shoes on when there was obviously nobody had any wooden shoes on, and the chefs used to swear that they'd seen a woman walking past the door of the kitchen, between the kitchen and the restaurant. Anyway, one New Year's Eve, a weird thing happened as well. Can you remember the drink hooch?
I can, yeah.
Right, we had a big display of hooch. It was a New Year, and we had a big, because I used to be, bar staff like most of us when we were younger. Nearly everybody's had a bar job, and I was much younger. And there was a huge display of, from the hooch, you'll know how long ago it was, and there was a huge display of this hooch on the bar, and it just all lifted forward by itself and then smashed to the floor. It was bizarre. But there was this one day I was carrying a tray from the restaurant downstairs, the restaurant upstairs, because there was a posh one upstairs and like a chip shop thing downstairs. And I was carrying it down the stairs and I could hear this rustling behind me like a dress.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm getting freaked out. It's not like me. Normally I don't give a monkeys. And so I kept walking. I turned around. There was nothing there. And then I walked down this, like, turned the corner because it was like 2 flights of stairs. Turned the corner and I heard this crinkling again, and I was like, "Oh, just off." And I swear to God, I felt 2 hands shove me in the back.
Wow.
And I just came down the last 4 stairs.
Wow.
It was really strange. A tree everywhere. It was really strange, and I just put it down to my imagination.
Yeah, because
So
I'm a natural skeptic, you know.
yeah,
I just think I would very rarely, you know, believe in things like that, UFOs and stuff like that, you know. But
I mean, I know that happened, but I don't know the reason it happened. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe I was tired. You
but you,
know.
but you think there's an actual explanation for it that's not supernatural, right? You just don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
that's where I always go first,
Yeah.
because that's usually the, you know,
Hmm.
the
The
explanation for it.
most likely explanation, right?
Yeah, is normally a natural one rather than a supernatural one. And you would always look for those first, because otherwise, how can you claim something's paranormal if the first place you go is paranormal? It's
Good
like
point.
when you've got a suspect in a police case, in a crime case, and the police look at one suspect and don't get any corroborating evidence or look into anybody else to cancel them out of the investigation.
You're
It
reminding
must
me. Sorry.
go on.
You're
Well,
reminding me of conspiracies. We were having a discussion about conspiracies the other day. I'm fascinated by conspiracy theories, just as a subject, you know, in the way that some
hmm
people go down rabbit holes.
Oh, I
Um,
used to go down a lot of those on YouTube. There's so many less videos than there used to be. I used to have great nights where I just used to sit for hours going down rabbit holes for conspiracies on YouTube because there was so much bullshit. It
I
was
know.
fascinating. Um, the one about FEMA camps was probably my favourite. That
What's
if
that?
you had a sticker, there was a conspiracy that they were going to separate, like, the society. This was about 10 years ago. They're
Right?
going to separate society into useful and less useful members of society. They were going to, like, swap us out, right? So they're going to get rid of the less useful ones or the less compliant ones.
Like a
I can't
cult.
remember which it was. Yes, like they were just going to, like, a cull. And they already had these FEMA camps set up. So they were saying this building's a FEMA camp. And how they were showing the government, how they were deciding, was that they were putting stickers on letterboxes, on mailboxes of certain colours. I kid you not, right? And I mean, there might be a couple of these videos still up, but like, and I found that amazing because I'm like, this is the sticker from the mailman's bag.
Yeah.
You crazy people. That one and the one about the birds being robots. That all the birds were killed. That all the birds were killed,
Oh my
and they were
god.
made into robots by the CIA. And when
Oh
they
my
sit on, I kid you not, when they sit on electrical cables, they are charging.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I
These
mean,
these people believe this.
do you know the flat Earth thing, right? I
Mm-hmm.
never actually, when that first conspiracy became popular, I didn't think a single person really believed it, right? I thought they were just basically trolling, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they enjoyed just trying to rile people up, you know, because it's such a outlandish conspiracy theory. But
Mm-hmm.
like yourself, you go down the odd YouTube black hole sometimes, or like a wormhole into some of these conspiracy things, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. But
Yes.
come to realize there are people that genuinely believe
Mm-hmm.
that we live on a flat Earth, and they can give damn good reasons why they believe it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, it's
Got
hilarious.
fans all around the globe.
Damn right, yeah. And I mean, obviously, some of them are doing it just for financial reasons. I mean, there's people that
Well,
make
yeah.
money out of it, you know.
Wait
Um,
until you see these marvelous pastors in their speeches. They're not conspiracy theories, but they might as well be.
yeah, I mean, the kind of the main ones for me are 9/11 and the JFK assassination, you know, because they're, you know, you could
Well,
legitimately argue
they
for them, you
could
know.
legitimately be a conspiracy. So could
Yeah.
9/11, yeah. I've got my own theory on 9/11.
Oh, do you? And like, how far do you go on that? Because there's a scale, right, of possible conspiracies there.
Right, okay. Ballpark. I don't believe in fake planes. I don't believe that it wasn't a terrorist attack. I think they knew it was coming. They weighed the options, they looked at the benefits, and they allowed it to happen.
That's the most plausible conspiracy, right? That they
Because he was told.
allowed it.
He was told.
Mm.
Bush was advised that the attack was coming and how it was coming. He took no action.
Which would be pretty evil, right?
Not when you look at how people want to make money.
Well, was it Pink Floyd that said money is the root of all evil?
Well, it is, kinda. It is, kinda. You know, when you look at it like that, when people prioritize it above all else, above the cost of human life, and created a situation where we have more religious intolerance, more prejudice, more hate ever since. Look at the ramifications. The world was just getting to a little bit of a sweet spot where everybody was allowed to be who they were. Wasn't so bad. We were ticking by okay when the year 2000 turned over. And then 2001 came, and ever since then it's been more and more fighting and unrest and everybody fighting with each other.
Yeah, after the Berlin Wall came down, you know, going through the 80s and 90s, it was definitely one of the better periods in history, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was because we were hopeful for the future.
Yeah.
And things started to get better from then, and then 9/11 happened, and just. But yeah,
everyone.
I mean, Building 7, yeah, exactly.
That's the one,
Say no
isn't
more.
it?
I mean, they
That's
do
the
have.
one.
To be fair, they do have footage of what's he called, Rockefeller, saying pull it. He told them to pull the buildings.
It's not what it
Pull it.
meant, though, right? It's a term that's used, you know, in terms of getting the pull the operation from like the firefighters. Like pull it is just not a term that's ever used for bringing down a building as a controlled demolition.
It's not?
No. No.
See, well, I can see how people would perceive it that way, because I kind of did.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because that didn't fall down by itself.
Well, see, a lot of people don't know just how much damage Building 7 had, right? Because it was really close to the tower, like the North Tower, and there was a huge amount of debris, like flaming debris that hit that tower, and there was the whole corner was gouged out. You just didn't see it because all the cameras were on the other side because there was just too much smoke and things on the other side. And the amount of fire that was going through that building was crazy, you know, and it just.
Well, it could be foundational damage as well, but if just the way it went down, that it was all in its own footprint, was just a bit.
It does look like a controlled demolition. It actually does fall at free fall speed for like half the way down.
Could be a coincidence, but it is weird. But I'll keep an open mind on that. I'm happy to accept that it was damaged because that makes sense. Again, it's the most plausible explanation.
Yeah.
But yeah, just looked weird. I mean, even the way the towers fell was weird because they fell in their own footprint as well.
Yeah. I'm enjoying the Large Hadron Collider theories in a positive way, not the end of the world way.
Yeah, in a way that you're sort of going, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, not so long ago, QAnon had themselves convinced JFK was still alive, and they were all waiting for him.
Who was still alive?
JFK.
JFK.
JFK was going to come back. Well, he'd been alive the whole time, and now he's a Republican, and he was going to meet them.
Well, if he's still alive, he must have been living a hell of a healthy lifestyle because he would be about 105 now, I think.
Well, you see, I wish that was the biggest flaw in the claim.
Yeah, the fact he got killed on camera.
But you know, he didn't turn up. Disappointing.
Yeah.
I would have quite liked to have seen him. I have some questions.
Yeah. A lot of questions, right?
So, I mean, Marilyn's one of the topics I wanted to cover as well, but I still haven't got around to that because things that are really research heavy, I want to do properly. And I don't get a lot of time to do a lot of research. So it's just a case of when I've got the research ready. Don't want to do Marilyn a disservice. If I'm going to cover a case, I want to do it properly.
I presume you think there's more to it than just a suicide with Marilyn Monroe?
Hi, Christina. Sorry. I think that both are possible because she was very down as well and she wasn't treated very well. So I think both are possible. So I'm going to keep an open mind going into it. I don't have a theory again. I need to do the research properly first. I can see why she would be taken out because she knew a lot of information and she got herself involved in discussions that she was perceived as not supposed to be involved in. She was very anti-nuclear war and made that known. So I can see why she wouldn't be popular. And of course, she had the ear of the president and his brother.
That's right.
That's not all she had. But you know, I don't think they treated her very well. I think she was treated as a commodity by them. And she did have a history of mental health issues. Of course, when you're famous, that kind of piles on. And if they haven't been treated very well and she was in a horrible situation, that's both things are possible. So I'm going to do all the research, and then what I'll do is once I've done it, I'll give a conclusion based on that.
Interesting.
Just need, more information is required. As they say in Geordie land, I div not know. Don't know yet.
Oh, thermite explosives.
Yeah. Because it was the lava coming off the building. The huge chunk of molten steel coming off the corner of that building. But, you know, because I once said, well, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. And my friend, well, I say my mum's husband, who is in aviation, says, yes, it does.
Well, it's not that it melts it, but it burns hot enough to compromise the steel. It doesn't actually melt the steel at that temperature.
Yeah.
But there's enough to cause it to, bend and just lose its integrity, which is essentially what happened. That's obviously the top part above where the planes hit. The weight of that eventually the floors essentially just fell through themselves, and then the walls, the outside steel tube, just kind of peeled away like a banana almost,
Yeah. Because I mean that does make sense to me if I'm going with the theory that they knew it was going to happen and let it happen. But I don't think it helped because when the building collapsed on itself, because we've all watched that if we're into conspiracy theories, and obviously we were horrified by that day. Who could fail to be horrified?
Yeah.
The floors collapsed, and because the collapse, they looked like they had squabs going off.
Yeah,
as they fell.
you see if you watch the video underneath the collapse wave, you see like what looks like you say squabs, the kind of little explosions coming out the windows.
Yep.
And obviously the way they explain that is you have to imagine the amount of air that's in each of the floors and in the space, obviously. Now, when the floors are essentially pancaking from top down, right? So the amount of floors is obviously incremental as it goes down. All that air has to go somewhere, right? So it was pushing down the tower, and obviously the huge amount of dust that was throughout the building was just getting blown out. It was just like the air pressure was just completely as it came down, it would just blast out the dust, and that's how they explain it. But it does look like explosions,
It does. Yeah, it looks like a controlled demolition the way it comes down. But obviously, the fact that there was a jets crashed into that. I mean, I remember watching the conspiracy theory videos about they were claiming there were holograms and stuff, and it was a bomb going off in the building. And I'm like, that's insane. Why are they finding chunk of air? I mean, the footage from 9/11, you can see the airplane wheel in the street. The wheel off part of the wheel off the aircraft, part of the seats, part of the damned passengers. God bless them, I just like, where did that come from? Did they set that up as well?
I know. There's just when you look at all the evidence as a whole, not just the odd thing. Like you can look at the fact that one of the hijackers' passports managed to survive the crash and was
that's
found amongst
fishy.
the debris. Sounds
That's
fishy, right?
When whole people went missing in that collapse,
Uh-huh.
they found the passports. I mean, you could see the guys going at the airport. They were on the footage, and they were training beforehand. That's like documented.
Yeah.
but it just seems weird. I mean, it could just be a weird, freaky coincidence because the way parts of things found, like I think there was it a bit of a wheel or an engine between two buildings in New York that was only found in the last 5 years or something that nobody had any clue was there.
Could be,
So
yeah.
it's possible, but it's
Hmm.
just weird. I can see why people think
Yeah.
it's a setup when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, on the face of it, it does seem completely um, inexplicable, right? But
Yeah.
there's always going to be these little anomalies, right? Where just something just randomly happens to survive,
Hmm. Well,
intact.
look at all these people who've had near misses with serial killers and murderers, and you
Yeah,
know, if you've ever watched a near miss video where people have like nearly been hit by trains and nearly been
yeah,
hit by cars and things, it's just like just by sheer chance
yeah.
that that didn't happen. It's very strange, and things can seem weird, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, there's been like instances of people falling out of planes. Well, not falling, but jumping out of a plane and their parachute doesn't open and they still somehow survive, just
Mm.
by an incredibly lucky accident of how they fall, whether it's through like trees or whatever. Um, but it's just incredibly unlikely.
Hmm. Star Stuff says, how do you feel about Flight 93? That's the one that was allegedly headed for the White House, yes?
93 was the one, yeah,
Came down in the field.
it did. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a revolt by a few of the passengers and two of I think the captain and another member of the cabin crew.
Hmm.
And you can hear the recording from the hijackers, and you can tell that they're basically trying to force themselves into the cabin, but
Hmm.
they from the recordings they realized that they were going to get overpowered, so they just like turned it straight into the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's why there was so little of that plane, because that's what
Yeah.
you think. You think, where's the plane? Well,
Hmm.
if you hit that ground at full force with that plane, it's just going to collapse.
Yeah.
Just disintegration, isn't it? There were bits and pieces found in the trees around there, I believe.
That's right.
But as for the big old gouge in the ground, I think that's probably, to me, that makes sense at that speed if they've just
Yeah.
dive bombed it.
Full speed straight down. It's going to
Hmm.
just almost liquefy, right? The
Yeah.
entire plane instantly.
Hmm. It's just because we don't see these things day to day, so people do question it, and people are right to question things. But for me, it always kind of made sense that
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like MH17 that went up, and that was an explosion in the air, but it wasn't very high up when it got hit.
What
So
was
that's
this?
why you had all that carnage.
Which one was this?
MH17, it was the plane that got hit. I forget where it was coming back from, but it got hit over Russian/Ukrainian airspace.
Oh,
There was an explosion in the plane, and I don't think anybody. I think it was accidentally hit by a missile, if I'm honest, because it was mistaken for something else. And it was absolute carnage. The footage of that crash, I wouldn't recommend anybody go and watch it. It's probably still on YouTube because YouTube don't seem to care about people's well-being.
there were reports of explosions in the basement that were odd. Yeah.
Hmm.
By all accounts, there are quite a few people that report explosions, from the basement. But by all
Hmm.
accounts, it's probably more likely that after the planes hit, and some of the damage took place, that the lifts that were in the center could have just
Hmm.
they would have just fallen all the way to the very bottom of the tower.
Hmm.
So that could be.
Well, the other thing was as well. I mean, there's two firemen who were outside, and they said they heard an explosion, and then a second explosion went off, and those were often used in conspiracy theory videos to sort of provide proof that there was a bomb.
Yeah.
But we now know that that was the fuel going down the elevator shaft
Right. Right.
because it blew people out of the
That's
lobby
right. Yeah,
because
that's
there were people very mortally wounded in the lobby, and all
yeah,
the glass was blown out of the lobby because it came down the elevator shaft that the lit jet fuel.
yeah, that's right.
Bless all those people. Anyway, my friend, it is 20 past 12. And I
Thanks so
turned
much,
into a
Kaz.
pumpkin about 20 minutes ago.
Mm.
I am very grateful. Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun chatting. I hope you've enjoyed it because I have. It's been a
I
good night.
have, yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting conversation, right? About
It is.
something that we can
We'll
all
have to do it
relate to.
again. Yes.
Absolutely.
We're all only human and we're allowed to be who we are as long as we're not hurting anybody else. That's fine.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But thank you very much for having me. And thank you for everybody in the chat being very welcoming and very kind to me. I am going to go and take a cool shower because it's still red hot. And I'm going to go to bed because I've got to go to work
Yeah.
in the morning. But thank you very much to everybody.
Thanks so much, Kaz. I appreciate you coming up.
No bother. Thanks for having us, Rabid. You take care and stay cool tonight, sweetheart.
I'm gonna do my best.
All right. Bye for now.
Talk to you again, all right?
Bye. You as
Bye.
well. Bye.
Thanks to Cass for that. That was a really interesting conversation, and as I say, it's something we can all relate to, right? The madness of YouTube, how to avoid the pitfalls. Yeah, I'm really interested in the 9/11 conspiracy. I didn't know about that one that fell later on. Conspiracies are interesting, but I look at them as entertainment rather than fact. I know what you mean, right? It's just it's interesting to see how they explain some of the conspiracies, and it can be interesting trying to debunk them, you know, especially flat Earth. It's actually a lot harder than you think to debunk flat Earth, you know. It actually is. It would be believable if Flight 93 was shot down. You'd understand that, and you'd understand the government, you know, wanting to cover that up, right? Yeah, let's roll. That was what the passenger revolters were saying before they tried to take back control of the plane. That's true, actually. Yeah, parts of the airplane were found about 5 miles away. Is the sound going in and out for anyone else? I have been having issues with my microphone. Question everything. Don't trust the government. Invest in NFTs. Listen to the wind and reach for the stars. People were off to invade Mars with water pistols. Well, Mars is the next stepping off point, isn't it, for humanity? Yeah, NORAD were doing drills on the same day. There was a lot of confusion, actually, yeah. It's very hot and windy here today. That often affects your internet service. My God, it's so hot. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I've never felt this kind of humidity. It's unbelievable. Thanks to Cat. Ever check out HARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program in Alaska? I don't think I have. No, I'll need to pick that one up. Oh, I've got the Lumen Tower actually. I think there's a book as well as a documentary on that. That's kind of more about the as opposed to conspiracy theories, it's more looking into how 9/11 came about and the aftermath as well, right? Okay, cool. Did you hear what the kids in the classroom supposedly were saying before Bush was told what happened? They were reading sight words: kite, hit, steal, plane, must. Being a skeptic, I'd say that would be a dark coincidence. You can go mental and chat anytime, Shannon. Yeah, Condoleezza Rice said that they just never imagined anyone would fly planes into buildings, but it is true that they had looked into that circumstance before. But regardless, I still think th- it wasn't really in the air, right? No one really imagined that um, terrorists would be capable of doing that. And now we've got the hell that we all have to go through at airport security. We have all that to thank for that process. Thanks hell to the no. She certainly does, Jamie. Okay, that's the next thing I'm going to look into is harp. Alright, guys, I'm going to wrap this up now. I am melting. I need to. I've never drank so much water in my life. I need to get some more. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us. I do always try and go back and read the comments at some stage. I know sometimes I struggle to get through them all when I'm zoning in on a conversation, but believe me, it's all appreciated. Okay, so I'm away to cool off, drink some water, and I shall see you all next time. So take care, everyone, and I hope the heat doesn't get to any of you, and enjoy the rest of the week. Good night, all.